Today on Locked On Red Wings, we give you a Jake Walman update. And where is our level of concern with this team after this rough 11-game stretch?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's us over at the Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Today, guys, off day. Got another off day ahead of us, too. Well, this is the Tuesday episode. Technically, tomorrow's episode, by the time you're listening to this, will be a game day episode. So we'll have at least a preview for you. But that means news in Red Wings land is relatively slow. So we're going to do an expansion of the conversation we had yesterday. We said we were going to. About our level of concern with the Red Wings, who are 3-5-3 in the last 11 games. If you want to do last 10, 3-5-2. Not a great stretch for the Red Wings, who started off the season really hot, starting 5-1. So we'll get to that and give you like a numerical value for our level of concern with this team going forward. But first, we wanted to give you an update on the Jake Walman conversation situation, because we talked about it yesterday, Scotty, about how they waived Zarnik, sent him down, and with the Walman injury, and we speculated, and that was speculation on our part, and we'll own that looked like it could have been a serious injury. The way he went into the net, crashed, and came off the ice in a ton of pain. We were like, this doesn't look good. And if it is what we fear, we're going to need to make a move. Well, Scotty, we may have jumped the gun on that. I've never been so happy to be so wrong.
I mean, it's great that what they said, he's maybe even going to practice on leading up to the game and then play in the next game. So obviously, if that happens, that's fantastic news. Jake Walman's one of the more valuable assets on this roster. So that would be awesome if that were true. And where you have no reason to believe it's not. So very good news on that front. Avoided. I mean, yesterday we were kind of talking like, is this even a big injury? But a lot of that, I feel like, came from the move. I mean, it didn't look good for sure, but I feel like more of the speculation came from the corresponding move than anything else. And I mean, if Walman does come back, like, you still have a roster spot you can utilize. Like, there, I mean, that's still a conversation. It's a different one because you're probably not going to bring up an eighth defenseman. You probably would do forward for a forward there. But I mean, that's still a conversation, we can have on what's really to do after that. That can be something, whatever, later in the week. But as far as Walman goes, fantastic news. Fantastic news. I know a lot of people still want to see Edvinsson. We all do too.
Yes.
But the fact that if we were to see Edvinsson, or if we were to see anybody, it wouldn't be at the expense of one of the best defensemen on the team, is obviously fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Ansar Khan's who reported this earlier today. I see it on Twitter, and he said that Walman is questionable for practice on Tuesday, so today by the time you guys are listening to this, and is possible he might be ready for the game on Wednesday. So there's a possibility he might still, be day-to-day and not play, but that is still, like we were saying, a huge improvement over what we feared had happened. So it's great news, and like you said, a lot of it has to do with also the fact that Zarnik was waived. We were anticipating possibly a call-up defensively. And in fact, I would say even with the Walman injury, something's got to give at some point, because this defense, and it's not just the defense, it's the team defense as a whole, has not been great. But it starts first and foremost, too, like with the defensive core, who has been cycling healthy scratch outside the top pair all season long, not being able to figure out. And I'm sure part of that's the plan, right? Give guys kind of equal playing time until you sort it out. But none of them have really earned it. And that was the same problem we had last year, talking about Osterley, Haig, and Lindstrom, is that guys like Petrie, Hull, and like Olimata, even Gostisbehere, who has been a scratch, haven't really earned that a definitive roster spot to be never rotated out of the lineup type situation. I know it's a game to game basis for that, but it's kind of crazy that we're over a month into the season right now, Scotty, and outside of Walman and Seider, the other 5 defensemen can't solidify their spot as just immune to healthy scratch. It's kind of wild that that's how poor the other 5 have been playing. One will have a great game. We were in for a while, we were talking about how good Justin Hull had been. And then he just looked really bad in his first game back after being scratched in Ottawa. It's just, that's why I'm still banging the drum that it might be time to get Edvinsson up, because I'm getting tired of seeing veterans make dumb mistakes. I'm ready to see a rookie who's fun make the fun mistake.
How do you
Not
do
fun
that,
mistake,
though?
but
How do you create that roster spot?
well, there's a roster spot available right now. I mean,
Yeah. Well, then you're carrying 8.
Yeah,
How are you?
Scratch 2. I don't care. They're bad.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. If it's as simple as that for you, then it's as simple as that. I don't think the front office is going to roll in carrying 3 goalies and 8 defensemen.
No, and I know, logically, that is not make any sense. I realize as I say this, it doesn't make any sense, and it's not going to happen. It's very wishful thinking on my part. I completely agree.
And I know that I know that you know that. I'm just I'm trying to I mean, we all want to see something, but I don't know how you create that roster spot assuming health of everybody. I don't.
Well, and that goes into the second part. Ansar Khan did say that if Walman isn't good to go, that then they'll possibly explore the idea of calling somebody up. Then there's the possibility they'll do so. I think it's a no-brainer. I know that the Griffins aren't off to a great start. I think Simon Edvinsson has been getting a bulk of the workload. I think he's looked fine. And I know for some people, fine at the AHL isn't good enough. But again, it doesn't come from a position of he's banging on the door, knocking the door down, trying to get up here. It just comes from a position of exasperation. I just need to see something different. And I want it to be this rookie who we have highly touted, who's already on the verge of being NHL ready. Bring him up and see if you can't give him good minutes to help his development along, accelerate it a little. I mean, obviously, if he's playing bad and you're killing his confidence, send him back down. But he was already banging on the door during training camp to the point where we thought that he might make the team, and he didn't. But something needs to change because this defense is so bad, and I'm really happy Walman's healthy, or relatively healthy at least, not seriously hurt. That goes without saying, but that doesn't change my opinion that something needs to change with this defensive core, because every single game, the turnovers and the lapses are costing this team greatly. And that takes us to the other point. We mentioned this off the air. I don't remember if we said it on the air, Scotty, but we said, if you're going to have a goaltending situation like the Red Wings have, and by that I mean not a great one, you have to have a really good defense that can insulate the goaltender around them, like the Carolina Hurricanes have done the past few years. Not so much this season. They're struggling right now in net, the Hurricanes are. But the Red Wings don't have a good enough defense to insulate their bad goaltending, and starter is in question for the game on Wednesday. What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it has to do with just Husso's status in general, obviously, yeah. Right? Left for a big moment for him and his family. So obviously that's going to play a little bit of a role. I would imagine that if Husso is back, then he is in net. He's like it or not, been the workhorse so far this season and hasn't played in a week. I think that kind of just makes the most sense on paper. But if they throw out, Alex Lyon again, I wouldn't be upset.
Listen, if I think that if Husso can't return, then Alex Lyon is the without a doubt the right move to make. They've had 4 days off of rest, maybe more. I haven't counted, but it's been a lot of days from Saturday to Wednesday. Yeah. So he's got more than enough rest in him. He played well against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The third period, the dam just broke because the Maple Leafs were playing really aggressive. And the Red Wings had 5 defensemen and were very fatigued from the second half of a back-to-back. I think Alex Lyon played better than James Reimer in recent games. Even if Ville Husso is back, and I know they're not going to do this. It's another situation where it's wishful thinking, not logic speaking, right? Husso is their starter. So if Husso's there and he's ready to play, they'll start Husso in that game. But Husso's been so shaky through this first month that I wouldn't even, in that situation, if he's back, be against them starting Lyon. Not that I think, and I said it last week and I stand by it, Lyon's not a starter in the NHL, but I'm very much in favor of riding the hot hand. And Lyon gave us a pretty good look for his first game since June, as you mentioned yesterday's episode, against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Trot him out there again. In my mind, my faith in Husso is very shaken at this point. This goaltending situation is a problem. And And we said it was going to be going into the season. It was the biggest question mark. And like I said, the defense isn't good enough to insulate that and protect that problem. So you just got to do what's best for the team and ride the hottest goalie. And if that's Alex Lyon until he's not hot anymore, then do so. But I know, obviously, again, wishful thinking, logically, Husso's their starter. And if he's healthy, they're going to start him.
Yeah. I mean, you also just, I don't know, in general, you don't want, it would not do Husso any favors to like not play him for like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like you got to get him back in eventually and get him, see if he can get back on the horse. So,
yeah, you're right. All right, Scotty, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about our concern level, given this team is 3-5-3 in their last 11 games. So stay tuned for that on Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. Are you guys sick of paying just ridiculous service fees when you go to buy tickets? You think you're buying a $50 ticket for an upper bowl seat at LCA so you can see just the wonderful video board up close and personal. Well, then you come to find out it's $150 with all those tacked on fees. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Game Time. It is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees, and you buy the tickets in 2 seconds with just 2 taps. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, hockey, and so much more. And with zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% in savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast, segment 2, rather, of Locked On Red Wings podcast. You know, I've been doing that a lot lately. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been saying the wrong segment at the beginning of these segments a lot lately. Just completely biffing it, man. Not great. Not great.
all right.
But yes, we are going to talk about our level of concern. And I hate these episodes when the Red Wings are playing bad because I hate being negative on the team. I just want this to be a hype train going forward towards a playoff spot. But unfortunately, reality is sometimes cruel, Scotty, and the Red Wings are in a rough stretch. I mean, that 5-1 start with the 5-game win streak is ancient history at this point. Everything that was going well for the Red Wings in that stretch has completely disappeared. That being said, some of the things that were going wrong in that 5-game stretch have actually improved. But despite that, they are 3-5-3 in the last 11. And if you're a fan of just the last 10 game stretch, they're 3-5-2. Scotty, what is your level of concern with this team's performance right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's tricky. I don't think it's gonna be as high as yours, maybe, or as some other people out there. It's not 0. It's not just like I'm going through this and I'm like, oh, like we're guaranteed going to get through this part. Like the division's way too good for that. The issues have been too prevalent. But like I'm kind of like going back in my head between like a 3 and a 4. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like I'm not like sky is falling. I'm not. I don't think that this is like it's one of the biggest reasons why is because it objectively is not impossible to overcome. The Wings are still in the thick of everything because of the hot start they got off on. It's not impossible to, it's not even like American Thanksgiving yet. I guess that's like 3 days away, whatever. Okay, it is like that, but we're still like we have a lot of months left, right? Like we're playing this game until April. There's so much time still on the table that it's hard for me to watch a 10-game stretch in November and think like, oh my goodness, this is like like it's over. But I mean, the one reason and the one thing that is the most alarming to me, I guess we can start with that, because like as you mentioned, and as I'm sure you'll talk about more, like the 5-on-5 was a big issue, and then it's been better lately. And then like the power play, we've seen it be really good, and then obviously it's been really bad. Like a lot of these things is just like kind of similar to what we said yesterday. It's always something, and that is frustrating. But it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing. The one constant throughout this entire season, dating back to the offseason, dating back to last season, that we have yet to see take a substantial step in the right direction is goaltending. And that's the only reason that it isn't like 0 or 1, and that it is like, 3 or 4. Like it is rising for me, is because that's a very, very difficult position to have struggle and to be able to overcome over the course of a full season. So I hope that makes sense. I am worried. There are things that I am concerned about. I don't think that the season is over on November 21st. I certainly don't think that they can't right the ship. And because they've proven a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, that they can do them, they just can't do them consistently. But the reason that it's not, oh, I don't have a care in the world, it's so early, let's just see what happens, is because the goaltending has been pretty poor production-wise throughout all of it, win or loss.
Yeah, it has been. And that, again, I mentioned it in segment 1, going back to our preseason conversations, that was our biggest question mark.
Right.
And we were optimistic about it. We're optimistic at the start of every season, right? Because we want to believe. We want to believe. Even if, like, sometimes we gloss over things that we're always trying to be optimists. Glass half full. Reimer's going to have a bounce back season after he had a bad year. Husso's going to, adjust to the workload a little bit better, and because he'll be healthy, he'll play better. But we knew, and we mentioned it, like goaltending is still a concern because that's a lot of what ifs. We have yet to see it proven. And unfortunately, it's not been great throughout the start of this year. And we kind of talked about that, and you touched on it now. And remind me again, what was your number associated?
I said 3 or 4. I didn't really pick one, I guess.
So I'm about at a 6, which it's like I'm concerned, but I'm not freaking out yet. Despite my negativity on the podcast, probably the last couple of weeks that has come across, and that's more just a lot of it's because we record these episodes right after games get played. Sometimes I get hooked in. We've talked about my tendency to maybe overreact a little bit. But when I calm down and I think about it, we've had a lot of time to think about it because game happened on Saturday. We're recording this on Monday now. There are things when you look at this team that I mentioned on yesterday's episode that have improved. When they had that 5-game win streak, they were carried very much by the power play, which started off really hot, and an incredible shooting percentage that was unsustainable. Their Corsi for percentage, which is shot attempts, their Fenwick, which is shot attempts minus the blocked shots, because why are you counting shot attempts that are blocked? I mean, that's just not really super wise. Their expected goals for percentage, that was all like bottom of the league in that stretch. But they're still producing at 5-on-5 because of that shooting percentage and that incredible power play. Well, the incredible power play has been found out, and that still hasn't been fixed. That hasn't been adjusted since it got figured out. They have like the second worst power play in the league in this last 11 games. But with that being said, their shot attempts and their Fenwick and the expected goals for percentage has gotten better. I believe the quality shot attempts, which is the expected goals for at even strength, is still in the 20s, about 24, 25, which is not good. But the shot attempts in general and Fenwick is now above 50% in this stretch in which they're 3-5-3. In this stretch where they have just 3 wins in 11 games, at even strength, they're possessing the puck a lot more. They're getting a lot more shots on net, but they're just not finding the back of the net. And we talked yesterday about, regressing to the mean, right? And we've said that a lot, and to the point where I'm sick of saying it. It's one of those words that you say too much and it loses its meaning. But when they were really hot, we talked, this is not sustainable. They're going to fall back. Well, now that pendulum has swung too far back the other way, in my opinion. They're not producing at a level that is also not sustainable. They're going to get back to scoring goals. And both of those games in Sweden were very winnable. You stop taking the bad penalties, which is so easily fixable. You stop the defensive lapses. And I've just talked all segment 1 about how I think the defensive unit as a whole hasn't been great. I also don't think they're as bad as they are. The Ottawa Senators game is a prime example. Jeff Petrie and Ben Sherratt, we may have negative biases towards, or at least myself, maybe not so much you. may have a negative bias towards. But I also recognize they're not that bad on a nightly basis. They probably shouldn't be paired up together anymore. I'm sick of seeing that. But I also know they're not going to be out there for 4 goals against every single game. So if we can stop the bad penalties, stop the defensive lapses, you're going to find some middle ground. Well, you're probably going to be a 5-5 team, which still isn't great if you're trying, your hopes are the playoffs. We talked, it'd be really tough in this division to begin with. But my concern level is at 6 because they still have glaring holes. Like the power play is completely fallen off. The goaltending's still an issue. The defensive lapses are still an issue. And those need to be addressed. And through 11 games, it hasn't really been addressed. And that is concerning. That's why it's a 6. But we have seen areas where they've improved, which is like I said, the 5-on-5 play has gotten better. The scoring depth is beginning to get on board as the top line is beginning to progress. Now, Larkin has not scored a goal in, I think, 5 games, which does bother me a little bit. He's been picked up a little bit by Lucas Raymond and Alex DeBrincat, finally heating up again. But overall, I think the forward stuff is fine. I think they're going to start scoring more goals again. You saw them score 4 against the Ottawa Senators, 2 against the tough Maple Leafs team. I think offensively, they're going to be fine. It's just they got to fix the defense, and I think the defense will get better. I just, again, why my level of concern is 6 is because I don't think they're going to get that much better. But they're not going to be 3-5-3 or 3-5-2 in 10-game stretches throughout the rest of the season.
Sure.
They're not a bottom of the league team. That's just not how they are.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said, for sure. Like I said, I think it's just the for me, like where we're at in the season still just holds weight, and the fact that, again, like to your point, we've seen the pendulum swing one way and the other, and I think we're all just kind of waiting to, like, I'm still not sure we really know what this team exactly is, like a month into the season, right? Like over a month. Like I don't, because of that. Like at the beginning of the season, it was like, okay, like we're not going to have the greatest power play of all time. We're not going to have the highest shooting percentage any team has ever had. Like, obviously that's not true. And now, to your point, like we're on the other end where it's like, okay, there's no way they're this bad. And I think, it's weird to say this much into the season, but I think we're still just like kind of trying to figure out what this team is going to be for a majority of the year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break and continue this conversation in segment 3 of Locked on Red Wings. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning cash, not rubber. With all parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Segment 3 of Locked on Red Wings. You know what's funny, Scotty? Because we're talking about our level of concern, right? And you said you were a 3 or a 4. I said I was a 6. But then I proceeded to be like, the pendulum swung back the other way, and they're going to adjust back to normal, right? Like get back to being a little bit better. The reason why it's still a 6, though, despite my argument in like a devil's advocate way, saying that they're going to improve, is because even with that improvement in my mind, even if the defense gets incrementally better and the goaltending gets incrementally better, I can't see an incremental improvement being enough to elevate them to playoff caliber. And that's why my level of concern is a 6. So unless significant improvements are seen and we get back to, I won't say the 5-game win streak, even though its ancient history was incredibly unsustainable. Like that, there's the pendulum at like the peak of that, in that direction. Right now, we're kind of just like a little bit further in the opposite direction. But if we fall back to the middle of what this team's play is, given the 2 extremes we've seen, I don't see that being a playoff team. And that is why it's a 6. That's why the level of concern is a 6, is despite the fact that I think they're going to get incrementally better in those positions, that they're not that bad right now, like this 3-5-2 has shown. it's not enough in my eyes to make the playoffs unless that power play can get back to being a top half of the league power play. If the defense can prove it can keep the puck out of the net, team defense, and that the goaltending can be at least a 900 save percentage tandem, at least. That's why I'm a 6.
Okay, so where are we at right this second in standings? I mean, I know we had to wait, like we're going to do our, like American Thanksgiving, like update, obviously, that everybody does because of the percentage, what is it, 80% or whatever of teams. They're in the playoff picture, then make the playoffs. So like everybody loves to be in the playoff picture then. Where do the Wings stand currently?
5th in the division currently.
Okay.
They're at 9. So it's really tight still, which is really great because we talked about it, right? The 5-game win streak. Even though we talked about the fact that they were going to regress and the pendulum was going to swing back, the 5-game win streak was going to be a huge help in allowing them to stay in that race for as long as possible. Yeah. And it has helped because despite the fact that they're 3-5-3 in the last 11, they're at 19 points, 5th in the Atlantic Division, 1 point behind Tampa for 4th, and just 3 points behind the Maple Leafs for 3rd. So they're still right there. But those they were 2 divisional games, and that's huge. But anyways, continue your point.
For sure. So my point being, what's the record in the last 11? 3-5-3?
3-5-3.
So if the pendulum rests in the center,
and
take a drink of apple juice every time we've said pendulum this episode. It's probably maybe the first time we've ever said it in show history, and we've said it about 50 times. Let's just say it's resting in the center. Okay, water has found its level. We're not way exceeding expectations. We're not way under expectations either. How much different do you think the last 11 games are? And what do you think that a record would look like in that stretch?
That's a really good question because there's a lot of really winnable games in this stretch. And if they're just playing standard hockey, let me look at their schedule real quick so I can get a refresher on who they played and what those scores were. Because Montreal's a win, and I think one of those. I think you beat the Kraken. So that's a win instead of losing in overtime that first game. I think you beat the Canadiens. You beat at least the Senators. So that's 3 more wins to it, which brings you to 5 and
6.
5 and 6 in that stretch.
No, 6. It would be 6 wins.
6 and 5 then, which is slightly over 500 because I don't think I'm forgetting any overtime losses in there.
No, I think all 3 of the ones you just flipped were overtime.
Right. And I mean, you could even count the Maple Leafs game in there, right? The Maple Leaf had some extenuating circumstances. So then maybe you're saying 7 and 4, which is good.
Right. So my point is, if you're looking at season outlook, if you think that this team just playing the way that you think they might actually be is 6 and 5 or even 7 and 4, that the rest of the way, does that get you into the postseason?
I mean, I would think because that's an above 500 record and points percentage.
7 and 4 certainly would.
Yes.
That's not even really a question. 6 and 5.
Then that's where you're in the mix. And that's where we think the Red Wings are going to be, right? We talk about they're about a 500 team. That's where we think they are. They would have to overperform to make it, and that's where that's why my level of concern is a 6, is even that if they perform at the level I think they should, I'm not sure that's enough. They would have to they'd have to overperform in this division to do so.
Right. But that's my point, is that the level that they perform for you, if that's,
is
adding
fringe
a few
playoff
wins to the last 11 stretch, that puts them in the picture.
Yeah. And they're still very much in the picture. I don't want to make it sound like they're last place in the division, right? They're 3 points out of being 3rd in the division because of that 5-game win streak. If they can get back to playing 500 or slightly above 500 hockey, they're going to remain in this race. But you have got the one thing that's going to take them over the top is these divisional games. Sure. And that's why maybe I'm coming at it with such a negative aspect. 3-5-3 stinks, right? But losing those 2 back-to-back divisional games, that really stinks. That really hurts. That's salt in the wound. Those are games you have to have. I don't care. I mean, obviously, this is a hyperbole I'm about to say, but I don't care if you lose every single Western Conference game. But if you win your division games and the division and some of the games against the Metropolitan, that's you're staying in the picture. I mean, Derek Lalonde basically said it. He's like, we were really good against the Western Conference last year. They had a winning record against the Western Conference, but they could not win games in their own division in their own Eastern Conference. And those are the games that matter the most because they're basically, obviously it's only 2 points on the line, but it's almost like a pseudo 4 points because your opponent in your division gets the 2 points and you're stuck with nothing. So like you really need those divisional games. That's why it stings extra more. And that's why my concern level is maybe a little bit higher, but that's where I'm at, Scotty. Like, I hope it made sense. I hope I wasn't hypocritical or anything, but it just.
What if they had the crazy overtime loss to Ottawa the third game of the season, and that game was the Sweden game?
The game they won was the Sweden game?
Yes, sorry. The game they won outright, whatever that was, third or fourth game of the season was the Sweden game.
I'd probably, I mean, given that, because recency bias is a thing, I'd probably feel a lot better, but then they would still only be, 4-5-2 in the last 11?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not great either. I'd feel better knowing that they had won back-to-back games, Blue Jackets and Senators, but I think my concern would still remain the same. I mean, you look at what led to them as their success in that Senators game, right? And it was a lot of the things I was talking about that, it was power play goal. Yeah, I mean, it would make me feel better because know that the power play wasn't completely dead.
Right. No, for sure. I think I agree with you.
All right. I mean, hey, do you have any final thoughts, man? Let us know what your level of concern is, guys.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it. It's funny, even since we kind of started talking about it, I've seen 0 and I've seen 11. So I've from different fans. So like everybody's kind of all over the spectrum in that regard. So we'll see. But,
and teams get hot and cold, right? Like they're going to go on win streaks again before the season is over, and we'll be right back on the wagon talking about how this is a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, that's how I am, at least. Not so much you. You always bring the logic. We know. You're always the level-headed one.
No, I think that's it though. We
do ball. Let us know your guys' level of concern on a scale of 1 to 10. If you want, expand on it. Give us your reasoning in the YouTube comments or on the Facebook post / Instagram post / X post, whatever you want to do. Let us know your level of concern. And we will be back with a new episode tomorrow. A little bit of a game preview for you guys. We'll figure out what else to talk about for the other 20 minutes. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. See your team every day.
Every day.